My name's Quoc Vo. I'm from Thames Valley Police. I'm a police officer. My job role is a detective sergeant for 4 CID in High Wycombe. The leadership aspect of the research project talks about how police can lead in contested situations. So policing in the policing environment is quite conflicted. There's a lot of opinions about what should and shouldn't be done, and how do police officers and senior officers lead in such situations, and whether or not their political astuteness helps them to navigate such environments. Q method is not something that I invented myself. It's something which was invented decades ago, and it's a mixed method research, and by that I mean it takes elements from quantitative research and qualitative research and combines the two. Using that piece of methodology, I designed a cue board. Originally it was based on cards. So a cue board is a grid. It's normal distribution shape, so it's like a mountain almost, as in layman's term. It's shaped like a mountain or a hill, but then we flipped it, so we inverted it, so it's like almost like an iceberg. And part of that is that people need to look at what is important about policing. So they're presented with various statements about policing. So it could be shoplifting, it could be sexual offences, or it just could simply be engaging with the public more. And so they'll be presented with a range of statements, and their task is to put on the board where they think is most important to them and where is least important to them. And just because of the way it's shaped, it's a forced distribution, so it forces the player or the participant or the volunteer to make some difficult choices. So they can't put everything as high priority or put everything in the middle because they can't decide, so they can't agree or disagree with it. They are forced to make some difficult choices about what is important about policing. To get those statements, we needed to analyse a lot of literature. So we use police and crime commissioner plans. So they're publicly available documents. They talk about what the direction of the policing is heading for that specific police force. So what are their priorities at the moment and what are their objectives? And they're normally done in conjunction with the local people. They hold various focus groups and meetings, and they discuss these plans, and the result of it is the police and crime commissioner plans. So we use that as a source, and then we use other literature from the College of Policing, from HMIC. We use survey results from some forces in relation to their neighbourhoods. So different neighbourhoods and communities have various meetings. They're called NAG meetings, where they air concerns about what's happening in their immediate locality. It could be anything that's causing them annoyance or disruption. And we analysed those surveys, and we included that in the data as well. And then we held some focus groups with police officers and police staff to understand what their priorities are. And with all that, we came up with hundreds of statements which the police are working towards. And we went through a process of stripping them down so they're more manageable. So the final result is 62 statements which players are meant to sort. And we had to be careful because we didn't want to introduce any bias in our selection process. So just because a statement is not as popular as the others, we still made sure that it was included somewhere within all the statements, so that we take into account everybody's views. We've used it at the evidence cafes in homicide police, and there was a lot of interest in that because they've not seen research being done like that before. They're very used to a no-user email being sent out asking them to complete this online questionnaire or this survey, or being invited to do an interview over the phone or via Skype or face-to-face. They don't know that they can play this sort of game, and yet it's still a rigorous piece of research. And back in my own force, I've taken it to team training days, and then more recently at conferences that we hold internally. And what we found is a lot of police officers, mainly inspectors and superintendents, who have an interest in community engagement, are really interested in the board as a way to educate not only members of the public about what the police are currently doing, but also within the police force itself, officers can have an understanding of what else we're here for. I hope, based on the research and the work I've been doing with the Open University, is that the Q board is used more often. There's always room for improvement with these sort of things. It's just this is the first time it's been used in such a manner for policing. What I found when I've done the Q board with members of the public is that they are quite oblivious to what the police actually do, and so they're presented with the 62 statements, and the first reaction is, did the police really do all these things? And little do they know that actually the 62 statements are trimmed down from quite a lot more statements. And then the further point they then tend to say is that, why is the police doing such an activity? Shouldn't X be doing that? And so it educates them, and there's room for dialogue. And then one lady actually said that had she have known we had all these competing demands, she would never dream of complaining about the police again. That in itself speaks volumes about how the public are quite willing and able to listen to us and have an open and frank discussion about what the police are here for. But the police need to have some courage to start those discussions with them. Whilst I've been with the police, this is the second time I've had experience with academia. A previous occasion was with another institution, and on both occasions have been very positive. With the Open University, I found it's a very open environment where there is not much emphasis on seniority. The police is quite structured, particularly because of the way the rank structure works. And there are positives to that, but what it does inhibit is freedom for people to challenge and freedom for open discussion about things. And an example of that would be I sit in the room with the lead researcher, Jean, and other academics, and there is a very open and frank discussion about what is good about what's been proposed and what is bad about what's been proposed. And I think that's something that I can take back to my own workforce and encourage. Still, a lot of officers who are joining now, they see themselves as being police officers for the rest of their career. And I think having time away from the role, be a secondment in an academic institution or a secondment in private industry, for 3 months or 6 months is very beneficial, because it helps you see from an outside point of view what policing is about. Because if you've been working in an environment for 10, 15, 20 years, you become so immune to what people think of you and expect of you. And when you leave that environment, you get time to think and reflect. And I think that's very important, because when you return to being a police officer, that makes you a much better police officer. It makes you more in tune with the community that you actually serve, because you've been out. And then you can also spread the learning that you've learnt to the rest of your colleagues.